I want to just welcome everyone to the Everyday Energy Experience. I am so thrilled that you are here as we explore the incredible power of taking ownership of our health, breaking cycles, and reclaiming our energy. This is going to be 2 days, and over the 2 days, you are going to hear from amazing experts, each bringing their unique wisdom and actionable steps to help you on your journey. Today, we are kicking it off with a powerful conversation about self-healing and reclaiming our worth with Lynn Del Mastro Thompson. Lynn, I'm so excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be here.
I wanted just to, before we dive in with Lynn, I wanted just to let you know that we have a free gift for anyone in the audience. I want to reward those who take action, those that are here to learn live. So this is an exclusive gift only for the people who are here in the audience live today. And we have, for each of our sessions, I will have a word of the day and I will put it into the chat at the end. And if you email me that word, then we have a free gift for you based on the sessions that we're doing. Again, thank you for being here, and we are going to reward you with a gift at the end of the session. So let's get started. So for those of you who don't know, Lynn is a passionate advocate for helping women break free from generational cycles of trauma, self-neglect, and unworthiness, patterns that often lead to autoimmune conditions and chronic illnesses. And she is here to share how we can step into deeper self-worth, create healthy boundaries, and truly prioritize our healing. It's so important, Lynn. Thank you again for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's start by I'd love for you to share a little bit about your personal journey and what led you to this important work and helping women break free from these cycles.
Yes, I would love to share my story. So my story is very tied into the story of my mother and my grandmother. So my mother was a lifetime caregiver, as was my grandma, really, in many ways. And I'm going to tell it more from the perspective of my mother. So my mother was a caregiver for her parents. She was a caregiver for me at a certain point in my life when I went through some health challenges. She caregived for my father as about a decade ago. And I really believe that she never learned how to care for herself. And that's what I grew up witnessing, was a woman who was very giving to others and always putting other people first. But I don't think she really felt she was worthy of putting herself first. And this actually led to my mom passing last year. And I really believe that she passed before she really had to, if she had taken better care of herself. So she had some health issues. She had type 2 diabetes. She had high blood pressure. And I really believe if she had put a little bit more focus on helping herself and feeling worthy of caring for herself, I don't believe that she would have passed at the age that she passed at. I think she would have had some more years of life and hopefully good years of life. And so this mission is really on my heart because I don't want to repeat those generational cycles for myself. And I don't want to see other women repeating those same generational cycles and patterns. And I think this is such a common thing that so many women struggle with, is we are the caregivers in the world. We're the mothers and we're the wives and we're the ones that take care of sick family members typically. And it's really easy to fall into these patterns and these traps, and we end up sacrificing our own health and our own well-being. And I'm just not here to stand for that anymore. I'm ready for the world to see a change and for us to really feel like it's okay to take care of ourselves first and foremost.
Yeah, it is such important work that you're doing, because it is something. I have those patterns in myself and putting everybody else first. And I hear from many women that, they look after everybody else first before they look after themselves. And I actually, if it's okay if I tell a little story myself,
Sure.
I was working full demanding job and raising my kids. And my boss said to me one day, "Debbie, you're no good to anyone if you're dead." And he meant it. But I just laughed it off and thought it was funny. But now I understand now what that means. And I probably should have taken heed When he
At that
said it,
time. Yeah.
it's like that, put your oxygen mask on first before you help someone else. We probably say, yeah, okay, sure. But
We've
do
all
we
heard that
actually?
saying so many times, but yet how many of us truly heed it to the extent that we need to?
Exactly. So let's start talking about how we can break free from these cycles. And I want to ask you, what does it mean to be a sovereign, self-healing woman?
Yeah. So this is the movement that I am creating is for women who are ready to step into that. And what it really means is, to me, sovereign is we reclaim our own energy, our own power, our own kind of right to take up space and to put ourselves at that top of our priority list instead of often, sadly, how it ends up at the bottom of our priority list. And for me, the self-healing part comes in is when we do that. I've for years talked about that I believe our bodies are made to heal themselves. I believe just like when we cut our finger and we don't really think about what happens, the body just heals it. I think that happens on deeper and bigger levels as well. And so when we put ourselves first and do the things that are not just self-care, but also I think things that bring us joy in our lives, things that bring us fulfillment and light us up, that really also gives our body tremendous power and energy and fuel to do that powerful self-healing work. So whether you're somebody who is struggling with a health condition right now, or you're somebody that wants to avoid that becoming your destiny, all of that, reclaiming that energy and just putting you at the top really helps you become that woman who stays healthy and well, or who becomes a healthier, happier version of yourself.
Yeah. And I think that there's probably some steps that we need to take in order to do that. And I know you mentioned that one of the things that you do talk about is the generational cycles of our self-neglect and our unworthiness. And I can see that, like it's something that we grow up with, we see from our mothers, our grandmothers. And so how do these patterns show up in women's lives today?
I really think that they show up in many different ways. They show up in that saying yes to everything when we really don't want to because we feel obligated. You're not alone in somebody asks you to do something and you're like, sure, I'll do that. And then you think, why did I just agree to that? It's putting everybody else's needs first. So like over the weekend, I noticed this creeping in even for myself. I'm taking care of my father now that my mother has passed, and I wasn't really feeling all that well over the weekend. I was just really tired. And I was feeling that pull of, oh, I told him I was going to come over and visit on Sunday. Maybe I should just push through and make it happen. And then I put my hand on my heart and I said, no, like this, my body is asking for rest. And I knew we had a big day of taking him to see a doctor tomorrow. Yesterday, actually. And so I just said, no, I need to take care of myself. But how many times does that creep in for us where we say yes, or we feel guilty if we have to change a plan because we need to take care of our own needs? Just not really, like when we even feel guilty for doing things for ourselves. I think that's a big one for women is, oh, like I'm going to go take some time and do something I enjoy, and then you feel badly because it must mean I'm saying no to my family or my husband or somebody else who needs me. What about you? You need you too. So it shows up in so many different ways. And if you have a pattern that you're aware of, I'd even love for you to share it in the chat. I love for things to be interactional. So if, hey, this is the pattern I've noticed for myself, feel free to drop it in the chat and let's share with each other kind of the ways that it creeps in for you.
Yeah, I was going to say for the audience, can you think of things that you're doing or you have done that are exactly that? And it could be something really small. I have one that I'd love to share. And this is so small, but I have two grown daughters that live with me. They're adults. And I used to cook for the whole family. And then I decided, you know what? I don't need to be the one to cook every day. And they're adults and they could cook for themselves. And if they don't cook for themselves, they can fend for themselves. So
they're not going to starve.
Yeah. So over time, I said I would cook a couple meals a week. And now it's, if I will do it, if I feel that I want to, usually on the weekend. But other than that, and you know what? My daughters are asking me, hey, how do you cook this? And they're learning to cook all the things that they liked that I was cooking for them. And my one daughter asked me this weekend, how do I cook the Brussels sprouts the best way, right? And I'm like, yes, that means that I don't have to, or I don't
Right.
need to cook the Brussels sprouts every time anymore. And it is very liberating to feel that, yeah, they can go off and do it on their own. So it is really important as well that we do these kind of things.
And I love that what you said about doing it when you feel like doing it. I think that's a big key is we do things when we want to rather than if you have small children, it's a little bit of a different story. Like you said, they can't feed themselves. But when they get to a certain age,
Yeah,
you can say, hey, you're capable.
exactly. And we're actually helping them out too.
Exactly.
Because now my daughter knows how to make Brussels sprouts.
And maybe she can make it for you sometimes.
Okay, I like that even better. That's the next step in my journey is that they're actually cooking for me.
Beautiful.
I love that. That's perfect. Anyway, so we're talking about how we can reclaim things for ourselves and stop putting ourselves at the back of the line. But how does this impact our health? And it's specifically like chronic illness and autoimmune conditions. Like, how is this going to actually help us?
Yeah. So I was reading something last week actually talking about how 80% of autoimmune affects women, which is a pretty staggering difference in the percent between men and women. And if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Gabor Mate, he was talking about why this is the case. And it's really directly tied to this. It's because we as women are really good at putting everybody else first. We're really good at suppressing our own feelings, especially if we're angry or irritated or frustrated. We're really good at doing that. We're really good at tuning into, is that person okay? Are they upset? We're constantly reading the room, so to speak, and not always, how do I feel? Am I happy? Am I sad? Do I need something different? So all of these factors really show up as like why we develop these type of health issues. And so therefore it stands to reason that if that's why a lot of women are developing these type of health issues, then addressing the root of what's going on there is going to make a big change. If you stop constantly prioritizing other people's feelings and their needs and you express your feelings and emotions in a healthy way, it's going to benefit you tremendous. I know I never grew up feeling very comfortable with that particular emotion. It was one of the ones that was like, that's a bad emotion. Don't be angry. It's not nice to be angry. And when we don't feel our emotions, we start to store them in our bodies. And that leads to illness as well. Reversing kind of the things that got us into the situation where illness is showing up is basically what I'm speaking to here.
Yeah. And I know for me, what happens with anger is that I can suppress it, but it's still building up. And then eventually I get to the point where I am so angry, I just blow up and I lose control. But thankfully, I've learned how to deal with that. And part of that is just acknowledging those feelings right away instead of letting them build up until you get to that boiling point.
I call it the anger volcano, where we've pushed it down so far that finally it volcanoes up and nobody wants to be either the person that's the anger volcano or on the other side of it. So learning how to let the anger come out, like you said, just sometimes even just acknowledging, like, that upsets me. I feel angry about that, rather than pushing it down and saying, oh, that's bad. I shouldn't feel anger. Any emotion is just an emotion.
Yeah, that's good. So I know that putting ourselves first and making sure that we are acknowledging our feelings and being able to express them is important. But many women do struggle with these things and putting ourselves first without guilt. And so what advice do you have for our women today in our audience and those that are going to watch this recording after? What advice do you have so that we can start shifting the mindset?
I think the first thing that I want to speak to is we are conditioned to feel like it's selfish to put ourselves first. And I want to say that it's not selfish to put yourself first. If you're taking excellent care of yourself and prioritizing your needs, you're actually going to be able to show up for yourself and for others from a more kind of resourced and balanced state, rather than I'm exhausted and yet I'm still dragging myself through. For example, if I went over to my dad's on Sunday when I was still feeling just like tired and my body was asking for some extra rest, like I could have showed up, for him, and I would have been sacrificing myself, and I wouldn't have really been doing him that much of a service. Like, I would have just been showing up and going through the motions. When I took the day to rest, and then yesterday we had to take him on a 90-minute drive to go see a specialist that we've had an appointment kind of in the waiting for a few months, I was able to show up for him and be there with him, like in that situation, and help him. So it benefited me because I took care of myself and I felt better. And it also benefited him in that situation as well, because I was able to be a better advocate for him in that situation with a new doctor. We need to get rid of those beliefs that it's selfish, that it's wrong. We all have needs. And why do other people's needs matter more than your needs? If you're taking care of small children, again, like there's a different balance that has to happen, but there's asking for resources and asking for support from a partner, a spouse, other family members. We all need a break sometimes. We're not all meant to be running on full blast all the time. We need to fill our own cup and give from overflow. And I also like to think about, what do we want to model for future generations? So I don't have any children of my own, but I've been a mentor to a young girl for 13 years now. She was 6 when I first met her. She's 19, so she's a freshman in college. And I want to be a model for her to step into a world where we as women do just say, yeah, my needs matter. I'm going to take care of myself, where she's not having this same internal dialogue constantly of, oh, I guess I'll say yes to that because they need me and I don't want to disappoint anybody and I'm tired, but I'll do it anyway. Like, no, let's break the patterns.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really important for us to be thinking about the generations to come and really stepping into our own as women and not always being the one that's sacrificing ourselves for everyone else. But I think then the next question is, what are some of the simple but effective ways that we can start to create a sense of safety in our bodies and start breaking these patterns? Because it's not easy all the time. And
no, it's definitely
yourself slipping back sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think you're speaking to one of the pieces, is finding community. And that's why what the work that I'm doing is to create it as a movement, because I think it's hard to do it by yourself. You're going against all these old patterns. You don't really have others to cheer you on and support you. And so doing it in a way where you feel safe, because there's other women standing alongside with you and saying, I'm going to start prioritizing myself. And we're doing it shoulder to shoulder versus I'm doing it by myself and it feels scary and isolating. So I would say community is one way that we can feel safety. And I've heard a lot of speakers also speak about healing in community is so powerful. And I believe that. I think nervous system regulation is really important. And in a little bit, I'm going to actually share one of my favorite tools when we get to a little experience part of today. One of the ways that you can start to create safety in your body is just by getting your nervous system to stop thinking that you saying no, you speaking up, you setting a boundary, whatever you're doing is the same as a wild tiger chasing you, which if you're new to doing that, you might feel that way. You might get the racing heart, sweaty palms, all of those same things that activate in your body. So becoming more kind of calm and resourced in your body is another foundational key, I would say. And just embodiment practices too. That's a big part of the work that I'm creating now, is to be in our bodies and to feel safe as women, to take up space instead of being like small and pulling ourselves in. It's really about, no, it's okay for me to take up space and be in my body in a powerful way.
Beautiful. And so you talked a little bit about healthy boundaries. And again, how do these play a role in healing? And what are some of our key boundary setting practices that you recommend?
Yeah, so I think healthy boundaries they're nothing I grew up learning. So if you feel like you're like at that disadvantage of what was a healthy boundary, yeah, and Pam is saying, where was I 40 years ago? Yeah, I needed a me too growing up. I didn't learn. My mother spoke for me. So this is my journey, was that my mother always said, Lynn doesn't like to do this. Lynn doesn't like to do that. She'd rather not talk about this. So my mom was like my spokesperson, which from one perspective was like, it felt great as a kid because I never had to say anything uncomfortable. But then I never learned how to say anything uncomfortable. So I've had to learn as an adult how to actually speak up and say, I don't want to do that. This isn't going to work for me. Nope, sorry, I can't. And healthy boundaries are what we make of them. Like, we get to choose. what feels like a good boundary. There's no, you need to have this as your boundary. That's certainly not what I'm speaking to. But I think boundaries for me, I had a conversation with someone recently about this. Boundaries are really meant for us, not for the person on the other side, but this is the line that I'm holding, and you don't get to come across that line. Like an example of this in navigating what I've been dealing with my dad, he hadn't been showing up to go to his therapy appointments. And I was starting to play the role that my mother usually would play of pushing him, calling him the morning of like, are you ready? Are you dressed? Are you going to go to your appointment? And then it was zapping my own energy. I was getting completely fried for the rest of the day because it was very stressful. And then I started to realize, now what boundary do I need to set here? And the boundary was that I'm not responsible for getting him to go to his appointment. He's a grown-up. He's an adult. He chooses, does he go? Does he not? And I get to just say, I love you. I hope you go to your therapy appointment. I think it's important, but I'm not going to play that role of calling you, cajoling you, texting you 20 times when you haven't texted me back that morning that you're up and you're ready. And basically, I'm in charge of helping with his finances. So I'm like, my role is to just pay the therapist for him on his behalf if he shows up or he doesn't. I hope he shows up. He might not. So we have to figure that out for ourselves. And I think that it's like standing in that moment and saying, what do I need here to feel like I'm not overextending myself, I'm not stressing myself, I'm not pushing myself out of that comfort zone, and then making that practice and that boundary for you. And you might get some pushback if people are used to you being like, no boundaries. People might be like, oh, what is she doing here? And you have to get a little comfortable with that being uncomfortable at first.
Yeah, it is something that is going to be, I think, no matter what, it's going to be uncomfortable. But the more we practice things, because it's something unfamiliar, the more we practice, the easier it gets. And it's really, I think what I got from what you were saying is just be conscious of, are you setting boundaries, or could you set a better boundary? Just really being mindful about that.
Right.
And so I am so excited because Lynn is going to do a practice for us, but I just want to start by asking you, if someone is just beginning their self-healing journey, what's the one powerful step that they can take today? And then we'll get into your practice.
Yeah, so I would say one powerful step is just pick something to start prioritizing for yourself. I'm a fan of baby steps. Don't try to change 20 things at the same time, but what is one thing that if I made this small change for myself, and you get to determine what that is. I'm not going to tell you what that baby step for you is. What's that one thing that I would feel calmer, more at peace, more energized, whatever you're looking for? Is it just saying no in a particular situation, setting a boundary with a specific person? Or maybe it's going into the focus of what really lights me up and makes me feel good, and how can I do more of that in my day-to-day life? Like, how can I get back to a hobby or an activity? I think that's another thing we struggle with as women. We put those on the back burner, and I don't have time to do that activity anymore. So start doing the things that you enjoy, and everyone's going to benefit from that. You especially, but everyone around you will benefit from that as well.
Yeah. That's great. And I know when I first started thinking about that, I didn't even know what I liked. I had to figure out, what do I like as Debbie? It's a great thing for us to do, is spend some time on things that really light us up. And so one of the things that really lights me up that I want is sharing with the audience, not just, hey, we're going to give you one way of beautiful information from our speakers, from Lynn, but we want to bring you into this experience as well. And so Lynn has offered to do a practice for us to help. I would love you to be engaged and follow along. Lynn, do you want to have everybody in the picture, or do you want to have just yourself?
If people are comfortable coming on camera, we've got a few that have been brave and been on camera. If you feel like it, there's no requirement. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, but I would invite you, if you'd like to put yourself on camera for a few moments while we do this practice together. That would be awesome.
Yeah, so I unpinned myself so we can see you. And I'm just going to turn it over to you for your practice. If you'd like to unpin yourself, I can do that too.
Yeah, why don't you go
Okay,
ahead
so
and
let's
do that?
unpin you and we'll all, and you don't have to be on camera for sure.
I know
If you
sometimes
like,
you're just in listen only mode. You got
yeah,
things
that's
going on.
okay. We always, when I go to seminars and sessions, they always say that you get the most out of it if you try things, and you can try it off camera, but
Yes.
hopefully you're following along with Lynn. So Lynn, over to you.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to teach you one of my favorite nervous system tools. It is called the Core Disease Brain Balance, and it comes from one of the energy healing systems that I'm a practitioner of called Body Talk. And I'm going to just tell you a tiny little bit about what it does first, because I think it's empowering to know, like, why am I doing this in the first place? And then we'll get into the actual practice. So this technique is designed to help bridge the gap between the two hemispheres of your brain, your right and your left hemisphere. They talk through this central area of the corpus callosum. And sometimes there's a disconnect. We get stressed, we have trauma, things happen in our lives. And so right and left are not talking together as well as they possibly can. So that's one of the benefits of this. It also, it diminishes what they call cold spots in the brain. So that's if you were to have a brain scan and they looked at your brain, cold spots are basically areas where there's a little bit of diminished blood flow. And that can often correspond even to physical symptoms in your body, like pain. So when you're doing this for your brain, you're doing it for your body. And it's just tremendously beneficial. So it'll help you feel calmer. It'll help you think more clearly. So do this maybe if you're about to have a conversation with somebody about setting a new boundary or making some changes. This is a great way to gear yourself up, go someplace, do this for a few minutes by yourself, and then step into that conversation. So I'd love to invite you to follow along because, again, I think you do learn better than just watching if you do it along with me. So you're going to take one hand, doesn't matter which, you're going to have your fingers together like this, and you're going to place it at the back of your head, just where your neck and your skull meet. You're going to use your other hand and you're going to tap, and you're going to just lightly tap over the top of your head. And if you don't like the feeling of tapping directly on your head, you can do it just a little bit above too. And everyone just do that and take a nice deep inhale and a nice deep exhale. And the tapping hand is now going to come down to your heart, and you're going to tap over your heart. Deep breath. And exhale. And then tapping over the belly, so your navel area. So just tapping there for a deep inhale. And a deep exhale. And then the hand that's on the back of your head, you're going to move it up, and it's like covering the next portion of your head. And we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to tap over the top of the head. Deep inhale. And exhale. Tapping over the heart as you're ready for a nice breath. And then tapping over the navel. And then that hand that's holding is going to move up. So it'll probably be more towards the top of your head. You can tap on top of it. You can tap a little in front of it. Whatever feels good. Nice deep breath. Tap over your heart. And then tapping over that belly button area. And then hand moves again. So some of you might be more on your forehead. Some you might be in between. We all have different hand-head ratio. Tapping over the head. So for some people, this takes 4 hand switches, and for some people it takes 5. So I'm going to do it as 5 just in case you're someone that needs that extra hand switch. And then for the belly. And if you haven't gotten now down to your kind of in line with your forehead and your eyebrows, go ahead and do that. If you already had, you can just do it one more time. It's not going to hurt anything to do a little extra. Tapping the head, now moving to the heart. And the breathing is important, so you definitely want to make sure you're not holding your breath as you do this. And then tapping the belly. And then the last bit, we're going to hold the sides of the head, fingers kind of point towards the back. And then you're just going to hold there for a second. I like this feeling. To me, it feels like this brain hug. So just notice if it feels good to you. And then you're going to take one hand, it doesn't matter which, and you're going to just do the taps one more time. to the heart as you're ready. And then tapping over the belly. So these are the three brains. The head, the heart, and the gut are all kind of brains. So that's why we're tapping them. And then just as you're ready, just hold briefly 1 more second on both sides of the head. You don't have to switch sides to tap. It's just we're closing it. And then you can relax your hands down. And just notice as you've done that, if anything feels a little different in your body. Maybe you feel a little calmer. Maybe some people notice even changes in their vision, like their eyesight becomes clearer. You may just feel a little less tired. I'd love if you noticed anything, you can share that in the chat if there was a shift or something you observed, because it's always fun to hear. Less tension in your muscles. Excellent. Yes, this is a wonderful thing. And you can do this several times in a row too. So after you've finished with the sides of your head, you can go back and you can do it like a few times in sequence. I recommend that too. If you're like really triggered by something, you might need to do it a few times in a row to really calm something down. So maybe you had a challenging conversation, you were setting a new boundary, and then you're like, I'm all like freaked out. Maybe excuse yourself afterwards and go do this a few times. Your head feels calmer. Beautiful. Yeah, this part always feels really good to me, the sides of the head. So I love hearing that helped your head feel calmer. I always do this before I speak because it's nice to get my brain primed. It just felt good. Excellent. I love seeing all the comments in the chat. And if you have any questions about this practice too, feel free to put that in the chat as well. If you're not quite sure, did you do something right? Is this normal? I'm happy to also see a little question of the practice. But I suggest doing this even just once a day, like just to optimize your brain. This practice, actually, there was a woman that learned how to do this. She was a nurse in an ICU in a coma ward, and she went in and she did it on, I think, 5 patients with persistent coma at the end of her shift. She came back in the next morning and there was all this hubbub and bustle, and 4 of the 5 people woke up. And they had been in a coma for a long time. So I tell that story because if it can do that for somebody in a coma, can it do for you? You're not in a coma, so you're better off than those people. If it can help someone come out of a coma, it certainly is going to benefit your brain as well.
So was that after one time of doing that practice for them?
I believe so. I believe that's the way I've heard the report of what happened. It was like the end of her shift. She had taken what's called a Body Talk Access class, which is a self-care class. And she just was like, I'm going to just do this for these patients. And then she left for the night. And then the next day it was like, yeah, all 4 of them woke up, and I don't know how long they had been in a coma, but they were certainly persistently in a coma. So it wasn't just people who were in a coma for a few days. They had been in a coma for quite some time.
Wow, that's incredible. And I feel like you've got the breathing going at the same time as you're tapping. How does that all work together? I'm sure that there's
some kind of understanding of what's happening there. Yeah, the breathing is important just in general, but in this technique, it's like the body is scanning different things as we're doing deep breathing. So it's scanning through your different systems and determining what is the body balancing. And then the exhale is also releasing, much as we use, if you do a meditation practice, there are certain practices where you might be exhaling to release things that are stuck or trapped in your body.
And so you recommend doing this just whenever you feel a bit of tension? Like, what's your thoughts on?
Yeah, so I would suggest to do it maybe at least once a day, just as a new practice, like as a support for your brain, and also use it in a situational way. So maybe, since we're talking about setting new boundaries and prioritizing ourselves, maybe you're about to have a conversation with your spouse or a family member about you're changing something that you've been wanting to change for a period of time. And you're like, oh, I'm really nervous to say, I'm not going to keep doing this for you anymore. I'm not going to keep saying yes constantly. So if you're feeling that anxiety, that stress in your body leading up to a conversation like that, or anything that's really stressful for you, you can apply it and just maybe spend a few minutes doing this quietly. I always say you can, if you're in a public place and you are needing to, you can always go in a bathroom and do this in the bathroom. I've gotten to the point I could do it publicly and it doesn't bother me. But if you're self-conscious, there's always a bathroom where you can spend spend an extra moment or two just to take that time for yourself and get yourself centered and prepared. Because that's part of the reason I'm sharing it, is really it's a nervous system regulation tool as well. So helping you be ready for difficult conversations, setting new boundaries, setting new roles in your relationship, whatever you're doing.
Beautiful. And Pamela is saying, thank you for this. I don't know if there's any questions. We wanted to leave time. We have time for questions. We can even go into some more stuff, but we wanted to make sure that if anybody in the audience had any questions for Lynn, that we had time to answer those. So I'm just going to open it up if anybody has anything that they would like to ask, either in the chat or if you're brave enough after that tapping exercise or that exercise to actually ask them directly.
Yes. Then it's great to practice being brave, right? This is a safe space. So if you feel that little tug of, I'm a little nervous, but I want to, like, maybe give yourself a little push and feel free to unmute and ask a question, or even share something if you'd like to just share how something resonated.
And while we're thinking about whether we have questions, okay. So how long have you been doing this practice?
So I've been a practitioner of this particular energy system since 2013, I think is when I was first certified. So I've been doing it for about 12 years. And I've added some other systems that are complementary to it. But Body Talk is very much at the heart of what I do with clients.
Mm-hmm. So this is something you get them started on right away?
Definitely something, when I'm working with private clients or working with people in a group program, this is definitely something that I love people to be empowered with tools and things that we can do for ourselves, because I don't think that we're meant to be like constantly dependent on somebody to help us. I like people to be like, I have things I can do. And I have clients from years ago that still reach out and they're like, I still use the tools you taught me. And that always just makes me happy to hear, because it's a gift that they get to still keep using things, and maybe they haven't needed me anymore, and that's actually a wonderful thing to feel like they can handle what comes up for them.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm going to ask you, what are some of the questions that people ask you, some of the common questions that you get from your group, from your community?
Yeah, so I would say, I was trying to think of this because I saw that in your list. I think, like, how do I navigate making these changes, which I know we've spoken a little bit to it. How do I start making changes? And I think even if you don't join like a community or a group doing this, maybe having a friend is really helpful too. Like having, in a way, an accountability buddy or somebody that you can talk to about what you're going through. Because I think a lot of times we can think, oh, I can read another book, I can listen to another podcast. We can gather a lot of information, but the implementation is really challenging for a lot of people. And so sometimes having somebody where we don't feel alone is one of the biggest things that I think is helpful in making these changes. And I know for me too, as I've stepped into making some changes in my own life, feeling like I have people I can talk to about it, people that can cheer me on, rather than, what am I doing? I don't know how to find my way through this.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to talk about. I had something that really helped me to understand and to let go of my fear of looking stupid, of sounding stupid around people, and what other people were thinking of me. And anytime we're learning something new, we are going to make some missteps, but you can never get to that point where you know what you're doing and become competent in it unless you go through that process. And so by holding ourselves back and thinking, oh, I don't want to look stupid on the bus or whatever,
right,
you are actually holding yourself back from being able to get to that point where it is something that you can easily do and practice. And yeah, any practice that you start first will probably feel weird. Maybe you're not getting the benefit. But over time, eventually, you get to this point, and sometimes you don't even realize it. And then one day you're like, hey, like I'm just doing this and it's easy now.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, the more you embody it. And that's one of the things I love to talk about too, is like becoming the person who feels more comfortable. Like in the beginning, yeah, it's not going to feel super comfortable, but you become that woman who feels more confident and competent. As I shared in an earlier part of the talk, that I didn't grow up learning how to say no. So when I first was doing that, it was like, really uncomfortable. And when I met my husband, it's actually interesting because him coming into my life was actually a catalyst. He encouraged me to speak up, which some men might not have done, but he came into my life when I was still talking to my mother every day on the phone because that was what she wanted, not what I wanted. And he's, you call your mom every day. Do you want to do that? And I said, no, I feel like I have to. And he said, you really don't need to. So he encouraged me. And in the beginning, I was like, oh, this is so uncomfortable to have to say to my mother, I don't want to talk on the phone every single day. We don't have anything to say some days. We're just like sitting on the phone, like not talking about anything because what do you have to say? What do I have to say? And it became more enriching to actually have meaningful conversations rather than the daily check-in of, I just felt obligation.
Mm-hmm. And Pamela is saying that she is blessed to also have a husband who supports her in voicing her needs. And yeah, I don't have that with my ex or my mom. And for you to find somebody that allows you to be you and embraces and supports you in your needs, that's beautiful. And like you said, Lynn, not everybody has that. And that's where a community is really important as well. Just having somebody, having a support system, somebody to say, yeah, it's okay. You don't need to call your mom every day if that's not what you want. And
exactly
reaffirm to you that it's okay for you to be yourself.
To say no. I'm not going to, just because we did that. And that was what my mom had with her mother. And so to her mind, it just mapped onto our relationship. I did this with my mother every day, and I think she liked it. And so for her, she just thought I was going to enjoy that. And it wasn't that I didn't want to talk to her. I just, sometimes when you don't have anything meaningful to say, I'm not really one for just being on the phone for being on the phone's sake. If there's exciting news or something sad that I needed to talk about and needed support, that's one thing to reach out. But I didn't necessarily need to be like, oh, okay, you went to the grocery store today and then you did hear your laundry list of menial things that you did in the day, and then I reported my menial list of this is what I did today. Yay.
Yay. Lynn, we have a few announcements and things, and I want to leave time for you to talk about before we wrap up. I know you have a special gift for our audience, and I would love for you to tell everybody about it, what it's about, and why don't we do that?
Yeah. So I actually am offering a special healing activation this Thursday to my community, and I'd love to invite all who are here live or who are catching the recording of this to join. So the activation is called Safe to Say No, a sovereign boundary activation. And so this is for you if you tend to feel that sense of anxiety, sweaty palms, racing heart when you're trying to make changes for yourself, and when you're trying to set a new boundary or just express, no, I don't want to do something. No, I'm not going to keep doing that for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some more of what you got a little taste of here in the tapping exercise. I'm going to be guiding through an activation process to help you feel safe in your body, in your nervous system, and also in your energetic system. Because I think when we feel safe in kind of our bigger body in a way, like our chakra systems, our meridians, like all of the things that we're not just physical beings, we're energetic beings, it feels easier to start stepping into becoming that woman who's able to be like, nope, I'm not going to do that. Sorry, and feel okay instead of looking out of the corner of your eye of, oh boy, are they going to be mad? Are they going to be upset? You're reading the room. So I would love to invite you. And if you can't make it live to that event, I always record what I do as well and share the recordings as well. So it's going to be at 4 p.m. Pacific time on this Thursday, the 13th.
So I've put the link in the chat. So if you are interested in learning more techniques on how you can be safe in saying no and start getting those boundaries. And I know, Pamela, you said, where were you 40 years ago? And I gotta say is that maybe the right time to start was 40 years ago, but the second best time to start is now. So if you're interested in how you can get more on those boundaries, definitely catch Lynn on her Safe to Say No, I guess, webinar or...
Yeah, I'm calling it a healing activation. So
okay,
it's really going to be like, it's fine. It was what it wanted to be called, was a healing activation. So
All right. Yeah. And yeah, if you can't join live because we're taking up all this time on all these things and there's lots to do, definitely, even if you sign up, you get the recording.
Yes, you'll automatically get the recording if you do sign up. So.
Yeah, I encourage you to take some action today and sign up for that. And I in putting this, calling it the Everyday Energy Experience together, I wanted to make it more than just about coming for a couple of days and hearing people talk about amazing things that you can do. Because Lynn, you said it yourself, it's not just about learning, and knowledge is nothing if we don't apply it. And so part of the whole deal is to look at applying what we're learning. And so we have other things that we're doing. I just want to mention there's other things we're doing for the rest of the next couple of weeks. So next week, we are going to be doing the Too Tired to Cook Challenge. So it's March the 17th to 21st. It's every day from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And I am going to be in the kitchen preparing simple, delicious ideas, things that you can use to nourish your body, just simple things, just to get a little more nourishment in your body, because energy comes from our nourishment. It's not about increasing our calories. It's about increasing the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the antioxidants, the fiber that will really, truly fuel our bodies. So I'd love for you to join us live on that. And I'm also excited that Lynn will be doing a masterclass on March the 24th, which is 2 Mondays, I guess 2 Mondays from now. And she's going to host a special masterclass called Realign Your Subconscious Mind to Prioritize You. So here's another way that you can learn about prioritizing yourself. And so we'll be giving you lots of information about these things coming up. I don't know, Lynn, if you want to just mention a little bit about your masterclass and what you're planning for everyone.
Yeah, so in addition to being an energy healer, I'm a hypnotist. And so we are going to be looking more at the subconscious mind. So your subconscious mind is like running the show most of the time. It's where all of your beliefs, your identity, those deep-seated things that you learned when you were 3 years old watching your mom self-sacrifice, that's where it's all stored. And to really work with that, it's very powerful to use hypnosis because we can't really access our subconscious mind through the conscious mind. If you journal and you do all those kinds of things, that's great, but you're not really accessing the subconscious. And I'm going to guide everyone actually through a process where we're going to do a little conscious work, and then we're going to get into a subconscious reprogramming hypnosis experience. And if you've never experienced hypnosis before and you're feeling a little anxious, it's just very similar to meditation. You're never going to be asked to do anything that makes you feel silly or uncomfortable. I get that from people a lot where they're like, I saw it in a movie and the person barked like a dog. You're not going to bark like a dog. Most people just say their first experience, they're like, wow, that was even more relaxing than meditation usually is for me, because we do some exercises at the beginning just to help you drop a little deeper into relaxation.
I am looking forward to that because I am looking forward to finding ways to access my subconscious. That's for sure. I think that's a real gift to be able to do that. I'm always thinking, what is it in my subconscious that is driving me to do these things? So to be able to have a way to access that is, I think it's great. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll be sending more info on how you can get into that session as well. And I will be dropping my email into the chat as well, because we have a little gift for those of you who have stayed all the way through our whole presentation with, and if you email me the word boundary or boundaries, then we're putting together just a little one-sheeter on what we've learned today from Lynn that you can take advantage of. And that's only for people who are here today. That's it. We have Everyday Energy Summit at gmail.com. And if you take that and you put the word boundary or boundaries, I'll take both from Lynn's talk, then we'll give you that little summary sheet that you can take with you, and we'll give you some of the other information. Lynn, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and giving us such powerful insights in how we can break those patterns of that self-neglect and start really feeling worthy and healing ourselves. And for our audience, thank you for watching. and prioritizing your own well-being. And also it's about acknowledging that you deserve to put yourself first and start healing yourself and have the power to shift your story. Again, maybe you should have started, the best time to start was, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years, 40 years, but the second best is right now. And so thank you for this. Now, I am really excited because when I started this journey to put this experience on, I started interviewing speakers and looking for the best speakers to bring to you guys here, to our audience. And I ran across this amazing woman, Katie Miller, she is a holistic health coach and the founder of Pain-Free Effect 8-week program. She specializes in reversing back pain related to sitting at a desk all day. How many of us do that? Me. And her own journey of self-healing taught her that back pain requires a whole body approach, and is passionate about making her clients feel great on inside out. And Katie volunteered. She asked me, can I do something? And she had volunteered to do a little practice with us just to get us moving during our break. Our next speaker is on in 10 minutes, and you can have yourself a little bathroom break if you need, because I know I need it. But if you just join Katie, if you would like to do a little bit of movement. So Katie, I really appreciate and thank you for joining us today and going through and doing this practice. So Katie, I'm going to pin you so you can show everybody the practice and what we can do just for a little bit of movement. And enjoy. And we'll be back with the next speaker in 10 minutes.
Great. And I'm just going to take 5 minutes of your time. If you do need that bathroom break, then you will get a chance afterwards. Just want to make sure that you can hear me okay.
Yep, you're good.
Great. Yeah, so I think start by getting up on your feet, and I would just say just start moving from side to side, tapping your foot next to the other one. And basically the objective of this break is just to get you moving. And basically when you exercise, that releases energy. If we're going to be sitting for a few hours today, this is just a great way to get the energy moving. I'm very energized anyway. But next, if you stand and you put your feet close together, then you lift up one of your heels and then slowly push it back down. And then with the opposite one, you lift up the heel and slowly push it back down. And then we're just going to keep doing that a couple of times slowly. And then after you've done your next movement, I'm going to invite you to do this a bit faster. And you want to lift one heel and drop the other at the same time. And we'll do that a couple more times. And then again, back to moving side to side, maybe a little bit wider this time. And as you move, I encourage you to do a little bend in your legs as well. It's good for absorbing some impact, and also just very good for your joints as well. Okay, so next we're going to just pull the arms up, flip your palms, and then down. And as you go up and down, I just want you to bend your legs slightly, engaging your core as well. I think with all of these exercises, you can engage your core as you're doing them. And it just gives you a bit of stability, and also it's a little bit of strengthening for your core. Right, we'll do those 2 more times. Great. Now, next what we're going to be doing is you're going to cross your legs and bend your knees as you do it, and cross your leg behind the other one. And obviously this is just 5 minutes of these movements. Typically I do 20 minutes up to an hour. So this is just giving you a bit of a taster, but 5 minutes is enough just to give you a bit of an energy burst. If you're left feeling like you want to do more afterwards, then that's great. You just next time feel free to do these in your own time and do a couple more. We'll just do 1 more on each side. And then back to the arms again, just lifting up, flipping your palms and down. And then remember to hold in your core, and then also to bend your legs as you're doing it as well. And you should feel like fairly relaxed doing these exercises. Relaxing the body is also important. Okay, So next, we are going to do some arm movements. So we're going to put your arms up, in, out, in, down, in. And I realized I forgot to set my timer, so I hope we're doing good on time. I sometimes end up talking a bit more than taking up more time. Okay, so do some arm circles. And if you're speaking there,
That's good. I'm going to go take a little break and I will be back. But yeah, we're about 5 minutes to our next session.
Okay, great. I will just do this one last one, but feel free if people want to go off and do their own thing. So just circling your arms in big circles and slowly just reducing the size of the circles. This is great for your shoulders. I think when you sit at a desk all day, the shoulders is one area that gets pretty tight. And then if you just reverse the direction, starting with the smaller circles and just getting bigger and bigger. And then for those who haven't gone to the bathroom, just one last one. If you put your arms up and just stretch up one arm higher at a time. I'm not sure if I'm a bit cut off here, so I'm going to go down to my knees. You don't have to do this, but just reach up one arm slightly more than the other, relaxing the shoulders. And this one feels great for the shoulders. And then lastly, just shake it all out. And thank you very much. I hope you all feel that you've had a little bit of a boost of energy.